morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to cover this morning. I don't know if you saw the intro, all the Elmira Pioneer swag we have on the desk this morning. That can mean only one thing. We'll be talking to Robbie Nichols in just a little bit about the Elmira Pioneers Hot Stove Dinner coming up on April the 19th, and that's with guest star Bucky Dent. We'll find out all about that coming up in a little bit. Big news coming out of Ohio last night. Isn't it always interesting that it's a test for the power of Donald Trump? It's a test in Ohio today until the test proves to be a positive for Donald Trump. Then those terms are never used again. Bernie Moreno will win the Republican Senate primary in Ohio, a victory for presumptive GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump, who had endorsed the Cleveland businessman in the three-way contest. Moreno saying, "I would like to thank President Trump for all he did for me, for this campaign, for his unwavering support, for his love of this country." Now, as J.D. Vance, the senator out of Ohio, had to say, "I'm not a pundit, but if you take a guy who gets outspent massive, earns the most important endorsement in politics, and then radically outperforms even the most positive polls, then I'd say he's pretty good at winning votes. Congratulations to Bernie on to November." So big news coming out of Ohio. Oh, wait, there's another virtual wave. I just wanted to start with kind of, I'm not going to say breaking news necessarily, but I'm not sure if you've been following it this morning. Moreno also said, "Let me say something. I wear with honor my endorsement from President Trump. I wear that with a badge of honor. I will predict this. If Joe Biden enters Ohio, Sherrod Brown is going to fly out of here like a scared cat." All right. Of course, both Biden and Trump won the primaries in Ohio. Another interesting point, Trump-backed Republican Vince Fong will advance to the May 21st contest in California's 20th district. Now, he did fail to win the majority necessary to win the seat outright. That is, by the way, Kevin McCarthy's old seat. Fong, a former McCarthy aide, has already qualified for the November general election against fellow Republican Mike Bordeaux after they emerged as the top two vote-getters in the regular primary election on March the 5th. Besides the support of his former boss, meaning McCarthy, Fong had the support of former President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson. Wow. A lot of support. So there's your quick update as we start the program this morning. Now, I know yesterday we had a viewer that reached out. Well, it might have actually been on Monday's show, after the show, saying we don't really need to hear about Cuomo anymore. Not criticizing the show, just saying maybe he's not relevant. Why give him any attention? Well, I think Politico may have been watching Frankly Speaking, and it wouldn't surprise me, because they have an article about Cuomo that we're going to get to. So I apologize if you're one of the ones who no longer want to hear about Cuomo, but I think you will find this very, very interesting. Also, quite a few New York State issues in general before we get into the presidential. We also have just some general information. And as I said, Robbie Nichols is going to be our guest. So be a part of it. Let me know what you think about what happened in Ohio yesterday, but also about New York when I get to these issues when we come back. So let's take our first break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. What a beautiful looking morning out there on Market Street in Corning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We've got a lot to cover. So I mentioned there's some viewers. What's going on here? I thought I added a couple there. We've got a lot of waves. There's been a couple viewers that have said, why are we giving Cuomo any airtime? Why is he being interviewed? Well, as I mentioned, I believe Politico was listening to you and listening to us here on Frankly Speaking, because they ask the question, what does Cuomo want? I like the way they've worded that. So what the crux is, and bear with me here, and please weigh in at any time. There's the ongoing fallout from the scandals that drove him from office. Cuomo is being sued by a former member of his state police detail who accused him of sexual harassment and has been subpoenaed by a Republican-led House panel investigating the governmental response to COVID-19. And I'll be watching that very closely because this is a long time coming. This is something that I think isn't focused on enough. Of course, you've got to focus on the sexual harassment. You've got to focus on those claims. But also his response to COVID at a time when he was being praised as potentially stepping in for Biden during the 2020 race, if you recall. He was that popular. He was untouchable. He was a Hollywood star, and Hollywood stars were fawning over him. I won't use even the term for his fan clubs sometimes used. You may recall them, though. But on the other screen, Politico says, Cuomo's a pundit. He opines on the condition of New York City, opposing the looming congestion pricing toll plan he previously championed, and pushing the state to give more funding to the city to deal with the ongoing migrant crisis. Again, isn't that the issue with becoming a sanctuary city? Shouldn't you take that responsibility? Is that our responsibility in upstate? But we're not going to get into what he had to say. Allies believe he's trying to position himself for his next act, one that could land him back in office. Now, I don't think this is anything shocking to any of us that have been paying attention, clearly, and I don't know if it's governor, I don't know if it's mayor, I don't know if it's something like comptroller, like Spitzer attempted. I don't know the answer here. John Katz, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but I believe he goes by John Katz on his WABC radio show, said he wants to get elected to something. He feels that he got a raw deal, and I can sympathize. Cuomo, who was not made available for an interview to Politico, has cautiously stepped back into the public arena over the last several weeks, a move that comes months after he first began weighing a run for New York City mayor. Now, I don't know if it's even that cautious in the sense that you're giving speeches, giving interviews. Cuomo would not challenge Mayor Adams directly in a hypothetical Democratic primary. Both men share an overlapping base of blue-collar, outer bureau voters. Okay. Anthony Scaramucci, remember that name? The Mooch. He was a I don't know if it's the shortest, but it's got to be close. Short-lived Trump spokesman who then turned into a major critic of Trump. Told Playbook, meaning Politico Playbook, he would prefer to see Cuomo run for governor again. I think he's learned a lot from the political crises he's faced. It's made him wiser and more balanced and more conscience-oriented. I would raise him money and support him. Wow. Well, that's an endorsement. Anybody looking for that coveted Scaramucci endorsement, that could really make the difference in your decision-making. And now this is why I bring this all up. Former Cuomo advisors see an opening for him to be a voice on key issues. Quote, he feels that the city he loves, that he grew up in, is at a dangerous moment right now, said Melissa Del Rosa. And he's going to speak up. Let me finish her quote. Okay. Isn't it interesting to say something about New York State politics where we always are somewhat critical that nothing changes, things seem to get worse with the budget, et cetera, and yet we keep voting in the same people, right? Specifically, I'm talking about the city. But the reason I mention that is, remember Melissa Del Rosa, who worked for Cuomo, they had a poll not that long ago that showed that she could win just about any race she went for. So if they didn't like Cuomo anymore, well, by goodness, they'll take his former top aide. Anyway, still Cuomo's record as governor continues to raise questions. Cuomo was ordered to appear in May in a closed-door session before the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. He would likely be grilled about his handling of nursing homes, of course, and long-term care facilities during the initial months of the pandemic, and how the state counted resident fatalities. Democratic Assemblyman member Ron Kim, they say he's a longtime Cuomo critic. No, is when his uncle died of COVID in 2020 that he really went after Cuomo. Now, people like we mentioned yesterday here in Steuben County and upstate were mentioning and highlighting what he did in the nursing home scandal. But it really took a fellow Democrat to have the tide kind of change on Cuomo. He says it's a welcomed hearing. Kim spoke to the COVID House panel last fall. It's a level of scrutiny and accountability that these families desperately wanted. This governor is a born and bred politician who can change narratives and change topics and dodge accountability. Kim believes Cuomo's strategy this year has been to change the subject. So he doesn't believe he's running for office. He believes that Cuomo wants to change the topic and get away from the nursing home issue. He's doing what he knows how to do, manipulate the media. Now, Cuomo's team has long maintained the criticism of his handling of the pandemic. An event that initially turned the governor into a national star is driven by partisanship, and they are still swinging. Rich, as a party, you remember him, Cuomo's spokesperson, said Kim knows he's only relevant when giving MAGA Republicans cover to politicize COVID policy, which was investigated 3 separate times by DOJ, as well as his own chamber, and there was never anything there. As he barely wins his own races, I'd hardly call him an expert on elections. So typical Cuomo nastiness there, or Cuomo spokesperson nastiness. One last thing. There is now, where I put, there we go. New York State senators want to close the loophole that lets politicians like Cuomo use taxpayer money for legal fees. Now, I'm sure you're aware of this. I'm sure we've mentioned it in passing. But they are, some state senators want to stop New York politicians like Cuomo from using any more of your hard-earned money for legal fees when facing lawsuits from their time in office. The local senators included a provision in a budget proposal released last week. Now, without getting into all the nitty-gritty details here, did you know that Cuomo's campaign received $564,918 from New York taxpayers for his legal fees late last year, with more expected to come? All right, weigh in on this and a few other New York State issues. After that, we'll be talking with Robbie Nichols, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox just getting started. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I am Frank Acom. Thanks so much for watching. We were just talking about all the money that went to Cuomo's legal issues. Well, if that weren't the case, they could have used the money for this. We've talked about green energy with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano very frequently, the energy policy here in New York State, and he'll be back on the program Friday to talk about the budget. But here you go. If you are looking for maybe a little bit of extra fold-in money, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority is offering $500,000 for a 1-year contract to help tout the group's wide-ranging push to phase out gas cars in favor of electric vehicles, gas-heated homes in favor of electric heat, and fossil fuel power generation in favor of solar and wind. Okay, just to give you the information if you're interested. The requests for bids, which are due April 8th, also want publicists to address, quote, the headwinds related to large-scale land-based and offshore renewable energy project development, including unprecedented inflation and potential project attrition from increasing costs and unforeseen supply chain issues, as well as concerns related to the cost and practicality of supporting building decarbonization. So let's read between the lines, because that's PR asking for PR help. Let's read between the lines. That's saying, here's $500,000. Can you convince people that this isn't already a disaster? Can you convince people that it isn't going to be very, 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 very costly, even though it is? Kind of PR 101. They're looking for a spin artist, so to speak. So maybe they should look in the world of politics. But $500,000, I'm assuming, well, it is from New York State, of our money. And in the long term, just another example of how disastrous this green energy rollout, these plans are as of right now, and why it would cost that much just to spin a message of what we're told is going to be great. Never mind the costs to you and I, the taxpayer, when we look at the EV buses for schools and retrofitting, for lack of a better term, your house. The list goes on and on. It's another example, and I've really been surprised by how many viewers have said this. It's just another kind of check mark on the boxes of why people are leaving the state. Just another kind of overwhelming push on your, for lack of a better term, freedoms, the rules and regulations. And that ties in with, and I know I'm going to run a little late before we talk to Robbie, but that ties in with a piece by the New York Post editorial board that says pass a state budget that actually addresses New York's most urgent issues. Now, a lot of this is New York City centric, so we can jump ahead a little bit. But first, for starters, slash taxes and drastically. The Empire State's highest in America tax burden has fueled a rush for the exits. Listen to this number. From July of 2020 to July of 2023 alone, more than 500,000 left New York for greener pastures. And don't misunderstand what greener means in that scenario. Number 2, next, repeal every recent criminal justice reform. Albany's rammed through several rounds of these since 2017. Raise the age, cashless bail, tough new rules for prosecutors. And it's all led to more crime. Major felonies in the city were up 32% last year over 2018. Reverse or at least repair every one of these reforms. And by the way, and remember it's New York City centric, and get the MTA the cash for more cops in the subway. We're going to skip a few here. Help mentally ill New Yorkers and get violent ones off the street. New Yorkers are sick of looking over their shoulders for dangerous crazies and stepping over drug-addled or mentally ailing bodies on sidewalks. And these sick people deserve care. The state needs to provide way more psychiatric beds and make it easier to commit those who are violent. Then, another one we've talked about a lot. Oh, we're getting a lot of comments in. Crack down on illegal pot shops. New York's legalization of weed sales has been a disaster. Create a workable system for licensing accountable, tax-collecting pot shops and empower local officials to shut down the criminal ones. And finally, the ones that pertain to us. Scrap, fix, or delay the green agenda madness. As Empire Center's Ken Giardin notes, the true cost of New York's 2019 climate law are off the charts, between $600 billion and $1 trillion, all paid for by New Yorkers, mainly via hidden charges on utility bills. And it puts New York's electrical supply at grave risk. Yes, of course, the technology is just not there. The grid is not ready for it. So that was a great piece by the New York Post. And we're going to read your comments. First, we're going to have Robbie Nichols when we come back, and then we're going to read some of your comments. So get those comments in. But here is our next break, and then we'll go with Robbie Nichols from the Elmira Pioneers, and he's going to tell us all about the hot stove dinner with Bucky Dent coming up on Friday, April 19th. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, which is very appropriate because we're going to talk about them in a second. But first, the Elmira Pioneers Hot Stove Dinner. Robbie, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Again, this is your second time on the show.
Wow.
I know. How many years have you been doing the Hot Stove Dinner?
I think this will be our 6th. So we took a couple of years off there because of
course.
COVID or that. But 6th or 7th time we've had a celebrity in, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun night.
And you've really had kind of a who's who. I mean, you're not getting BC level people. You're getting big names.
Yeah, we're going after stars and big names. Jose Canseco was here, and he was really funny. Dwight Gooden was here. Tommy John was here. Bobby Valentine. Billy Buckner.
Who just
had a lot of great people. But this one's kind of fun that's coming in because of all the Yankees fans definitely know who he is.
Of course.
And so do the Red Sox fans. Bucky Dent is coming.
That's
Bucky
great.
F. Dent.
Of course.
Will be here in Elmira, New York.
That's so great. Now, what does a typical dinner look like? Like, what does the event itself look like for those who haven't attended?
Yeah, so we have a VIP meet and greet, and that takes place 5:30 to 6:30 downstairs, and you buy a ticket and you get to meet and spend some time with Bucky, and he does autographs for everybody, and it's a kind of neat little fun thing. Then we move upstairs for the dinner banquet at 6:30, and we have a really nice, at the Clarion Inn there on Water Street, we have a really nice dinner buffet, and he gives a nice speech probably for about a half hour to an hour, and then we do more autographs up there for people. We do some silent auctions and some auctions. It's a real fun night, and it obviously the proceeds go to help the Pioneers start their season off. How
much goes into the pick? Because in this case, I'm sure he's going to give a great speech. They always do. Do you just decide throughout the year who you'd like to see? How's that work?
Well, it's a combination. We have a great sponsor. We have 2 great sponsors of this event. Hilliard Corporation is a major sponsor of this, and so is Blaze Brockway Contracting. Jan is a good friend, and his wife Claire is a Boston Red Sox fan, and we thought no better than bring in Bucky effing Dent.
That's so funny.
So it was handpicked, and we've been chasing him for years. I've been going after him since we started this.
Oh, is that right? So this has kind of been a dream for you to have him in.
Yeah, he was booked before COVID came. So
okay.
We're excited to have him in, and I hear he tells great stories, and he's got a tie to Elmira. Because Don Zimmer, the manager of the old Elmira Pioneers, he was the manager of the Red Sox, and he was the one that gave Bucky his new nickname.
His nickname. Isn't that funny? How long does it take you to prepare and plan for something like this each year?
We've been working on this probably for about a year.
Oh, wow.
It takes a long time. We go out, get sponsors. We let people know about the event. Corporations can sponsor a table and bring a table of 8. We have great sponsors. Big Fox is actually a sponsor that night, so that we'll have Big Fox will be there. Hesselson's is there. Friends. Jubilee, Save a Lot, Shimon Supply. Some of our great sponsors. And individuals can buy a ticket. Just if you want to come to get autographs at the meet and greet, or if you want to come for the dinner. And tickets are only $50 each, and you get a buffet dinner.
Yeah,
that's worth the price right there. Yeah. For some people.
And it's a family event too. People should definitely know that.
It is.
There's nothing better than hearing an old athlete tell his stories behind the scenes, right? And think of a kid getting to see that.
Well, it was amazing, especially at the Tommy John one. We had a young college player that was there, and he was about 18 years old, and he had the Tommy John surgery.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
And he wanted to come, and he had Tommy John sign the spot where he had his surgery, and he was going to go get it.
Like tattoo?
A tattoo.
Are you serious?
A Tommy John's name on the surgery where he had it.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of extreme, but
yes, right.
But it's kind of neat. You get to see these guys. Canseco was funnier than heck. He just held nothing back.
Yeah.
And told stories, and all these guys. I hear Billy Buckner, he has some of the greatest George Steinbrenner stories.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That went on, and Billy Martin stories. And so if you're a Yankees fan, you definitely won't want to miss this.
How important is this for the Pioneers?
It's just community. We just keep on out there. We try to stay relevant all year long.
Right.
2 days ago, Brody Moore hit a grand slam for the St. Louis Cardinals, and he played for us.
Isn't that cool?
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. Jordan Westberg's a shortstop. He's actually a full-time second baseman now for Baltimore Orioles. Played for us for 4 years ago. So some of that's neat. We just try to stay out in the community. We do the hot stove dinner. We do a Halloween event. Mm-hmm. We do a Christmas event where we give away things. We just like to be in the community and keep on giving back.
And you're already planning for the season.
Season's ready.
Oh, wow.
Home opener, Friday, May 31st. Fireworks night brought to you by Southern Tier Custom Fabricators and Hilliard. And, opening night, it always sells out. It's going to be packed. So if you want to come to opening night, get a ticket early this year. We're going to tell you because we're going to stop selling them. Things are going really well. And our general manager, Mark Witt, does an amazing job bringing out schools and bands and groups. And it'll be packed that night. Friday, May 31st. Fireworks night at historic Dunfield. The park's amazing. It's got so much history. If you haven't been there, make sure you take in one game. And if you like it, come back.
Well, I know we talked about it last time, about the history of it, but I also like that you mentioned earlier with this dinner, and just in general, you are a part of the community. And it's a very important part of the community. I think that speaks volumes about your sponsors that want to be a part of it. To say, I want a full table because I want to be associated with the Elmira Pioneers.
And that's what we are. Without our sponsors, we're nothing. If you come to a game, look around at the field signs. And, I have to mention Bully Hill Vineyards is a major sponsor of ours and helps the community out here. And like I said, Hilliard and Big Fox and
of course.
All the people that have always been there, Southern Tier Custom Fabricators, Transdev. When you look at our jerseys, you see the people that give back to the community. And that's important. And that's what make the Pioneers great, and it's been here for a while. It's been here, and I remember you saw the first game in 1888.
Yeah, exactly. It is amazing to think that at a time when we get rid of our history so much in this country, to have that still standing and be still a vital part to the community.
It is. It's to think something's been there since 1888 with all the things that go on, and I won't talk about the politics involved in things, but this is still going on, and it's been great for the community. And when you come there, I believe Mayor Mandel will be there opening night to throw out the first pitch, and to have 5,000 people in the stands. It's so much fun, and see the smile on kids' faces, and our players are great. That night we'll probably have close to 500 little leaguers in the dugout hanging out with our guys, running out on the field, and it's a community event. It's about the community.
And we're talking about Elmira Pioneers, but now the hot stove dinner with Bucky Dent, April 19th. What should people know about getting tickets?
So the main thing is call our office at 607-734-2690.
Okay.
Tickets are limited. We'll pack it, and things are going well. And if you want to get a ticket or a table or be a sponsor, give us a call. Get involved in the community. We'd love to have you there.
And April 19th isn't that far away, so you don't want to miss the opportunity. So again, it's 607-734-2690. Robbie, it's fun as always. Thanks for being on the show. Let's talk again soon.
Well, thank you for having me, and I can't wait till I'm here my third time.
And that's right. And I'll see you at the dinner. So, all right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Thank you to Robbie Nichols for being on the program this morning. As a matter of fact, we received a comment from a viewer. I have my tickets, and I can't wait to see Bucky Dent. That's going to be a fun event coming up on April 19th. Speaking of viewer comments, and I want to be fair with this viewer because I had said this after you'd sent this in. I just had not read your comment yet. The problem with electric cars and electric homes and heat, the grid can't handle what we have. Look at how often we already have power outages. Yes, so I want to make it clear that I had echoed your point before reading it, so I didn't want you to think I was stealing your point. But yes, that's exactly right. That's another major issue when it comes to these green initiatives in New York State. The technology is not there. The grid is not there. People have been saying it that work in the grid industry, saying it's not ready. And I know we talked about that with Assemblyman Palmisano, who's going to be on the program Friday. And I mentioned him because we had a lot of varying issues on New York State this morning, from the budget to former Governor Cuomo. So I thought we'd end our discussion on New York State on a positive note. The Assemblyman was visiting with student journalists from Corning Painted Post High School. And I thought, you know what? Let's put up a nice photo of that visit. Assemblyman Palmisano recently met with a group of student journalists from Corning Painted Post High School. They were in Albany to advocate for passage of the Student Journalist Free Speech Act, which would protect student journalists' free speech at educational facilities. And I'm going to try all the names here. Please, I apologize if I don't get the names right. From left to right, Superintendent of Corning Painted Post School District, Michelle Caulfield, Leela Lanavici, Adelaide Barlow, Kate Shattuck, Grant Terwilliger, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and Corning Painted Post journalist, teacher, and yearbook advisor, Mike Simons. So, there you are. There's your picture. And now what the Assemblyman had to say about it. He said, I cannot begin to emphasize enough just how proud I am of these incredible student journalists at Corning Painted Post High School. This issue started with a student journalist at Corning Painted Post back in 2017. And they have continued to work so very hard to advocate for this important issue, building more and more support with other schools and the legislature every year. I have no doubt their hard work, perseverance, and continued outreach and education will eventually make this bill law in New York State. I also want to thank Corning Painted Post School Superintendent Michelle Caulfield for the school district support of these students over the years as they continue to work toward their goal of passing this legislation. And finally, a free press and free speech are essential to a functioning democracy. And if these students at Corning Painted Post High School are the future of journalism, then I know we are in good hands. So thank you to the Assemblyman. I want to end on that positive note as we talk about New York. Okay, back at it. What a weird scenario in Texas. The court order puts the Texas law allowing police to arrest migrants who cross illegally back on hold. So you may have heard the Supreme Court weighed in on it. Hours later, a federal appeals court issued an order that again prevents Texas from arresting migrants suspected of entering the U.S. illegally. That's just hours, as I said, after the Supreme Court allowed the strict new immigration law to take effect. The decision by the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals comes weeks after a panel on the same court cleared the way for Texas to enforce the law by putting a pause on a lower judge's injunction. But by a 2-1 order, a panel of the appeals court lifted that pause ahead of arguments before the court on Wednesday. Following this, do you have your chart out? Texas authorities had not announced any arrests made under the law. Earlier on Tuesday, a divided Supreme Court had allowed Texas to begin enforcing a law that gives police broad powers to arrest migrants suspected of crossing the border illegally as a legal battle over the measure played out. So we'll have more of that for you in the future. That's just to give you a quick update. Hey, I don't want to always have these type of stories, but I think it's worth mentioning as we just talked about the grid and what that means for really, as the viewer said, power outages. You think about if you have no heat in those cold winter months, maybe for a week, a couple days as the grid is down, or you look at so many instances of when you talk snowstorms, not being able to get the electric vehicles to work. We talked about it at the school level so often about the school buses. What does that mean for something as simple as away trips, going as a sports team to a different school, not being able to make it on one charge. The list goes on and on. But then you think about perhaps the vulnerabilities we have from a security issue, because now the U.S. has been warned of potential cyber attacks against water systems throughout the nation. Now, I know water, we're talking two different things, but you can see where I'm making that jump, right? The Biden administration is warning states to be on guard for cyber attacks against water systems, citing ongoing threats from hackers linked to the governments of Iran and China. Disabling cyber attacks are striking water and wastewater systems throughout the United States, said Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Michael Regan and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. These attacks have the potential to disrupt the critical lifeline of clean and safe drinking water, as well as impose significant costs on affected communities. Hackers affiliated with the Iranian government Islamic Revolutionary Guard have attacked drinking water systems, while a People's Republic of China state-sponsored group has compromised information technology of drinking water and other critical infrastructure systems, the letter warned. So there you are. Now, again, it's not always to be negative, but it's something to be mindful of, as we have seen really consistent weak foreign policy and showing a sign of weakness time and time again from this administration. So just passing that along to you. Also speaking, well, I said it was my last New York State issue, but it's more of a presidential issue before we go to break. Pro-Palestinian activists are urging primary voters here in New York State to cast blank ballots to protest Biden. Some organizers in New York are trying to replicate the success of the uncommitted campaigns from other early primary states. This is seen as a protest for what is becoming a weakening stance on Israel. They want, originally the president was pretty strong on his stance, pro-Israel. Now he is weakening on that, but they want, really in many instances, no support whatsoever of Israel and a some of these protesters, I don't know how else you could say it, but pro-Gaza. But I'll continue. Sorry if you hear the sirens in the background. You never know when it's on live TV right on Market Street. Rather than urging Democrats to vote uncommitted over Biden, activists in New York have launched the Leave It Blank campaign, which asks Democrat primary voters to submit blank ballots instead of voting for Biden. But according to a spokesperson for the State Board of Elections, the agency does not plan to include the number of blank ballots cast in its unofficial election night results, which would blunt the impact of the protest vote. Yeah, I don't know why you just go in and go blank. That's a little confusing to me. Yes, I would like to know what's going on, too, if you can hear the sirens in the background, but I can't see. Why you would go blank and just not have people write in uncommitted if you're trying to emulate the success of uncommitted. I find that kind of confusing, but just giving you that information. We got to take another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. A lot left to cover. We're just kind of getting started, but almost out of time. Isn't that amazing how that works? That's why we're so excited to go to 2 hours starting April the 1st. If you had not heard the big news yet. April the 1st, we're going 2 hours, and I think we need all the time we can get, if I can say that humbly. All right, let's take that break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. I've got to say thank you for all the comments. And as you know, I try to read as many of the comments as I possibly can. As you also may know, if there is a compliment in said comment, it normally gets bumped to the top of the list. And Ken from Horseheads, you're great at that. You should use, this is a comment from Ken to me, you should use your incredibly persuasive talents and charisma to reach out to Elon Musk and ask him to loan Trump a little cash. I bet a lot of conservatives would appreciate it and immediately sign up for X. That's a good point, and thank you, Ken. I don't think I have that kind of either of those things, maybe in general, let alone to convince Musk of that. I was a little confused why Musk signaled that he had that meeting with Trump and then signaled that he wouldn't really be showing support either way. I don't know if that was a business decision, but I'm not sure that's, well, I don't know, you think of Tesla and the money involved with that electric vehicles. I don't know. I was a little surprised that he may not have, well, it's early yet, but thrown support behind Trump. So, but yeah, if Trump got back on X, and others would start getting back on X, it would be interesting. So thank you for that comment. Keep them coming in. One quick update. Jewish leaders are rebuking Senator Schumer after that anti-Benjamin Netanyahu speech. The Conference of Presidents of American Jewish Organizations, which is the umbrella body representing the institutional U.S. Jewish community, rebuked the senator, on a conference call on Tuesday. It's quite a lengthy rebuke, but I will read what is kind of perhaps the biggest takeaway. Our member organization represents a broad swath of American Jewry. Remain distressed that an American official would tell a sovereign Democratic ally when to conduct its electoral process and assert that the U.S. should possibly, quote, play a more active role in shaping Israeli policy by using our leverage to change present course. In actuality, what is really needed is U.S. leverage to bolster and support the Jewish state in this time of need. All right. Oh, hey, did you see, on a kind of just a side note, but I think many of us would welcome this, Melania Trump kind of teasing that she may make a comeback on the campaign trail. Former First Lady Melania Trump made a rare public appearance, and I like how they say that. They always try. This is another example of the media and how despicable it can be. How many years now have you heard that the marriage is just done between the Trumps? Oh, it's done. Divorce any day now. It's just over. I mean, we've heard that for so long. It's just another one of these narratives that the media try to push. So this is coming from CNN. She made a rare public appearance Tuesday alongside her husband, Donald Trump, to cast her ballot in the Florida presidential primary and teased a potential return to the campaign trail. When asked by a reporter if she's going to return to the trail, she said, "Stay tuned." The Trumps had just exited a polling location together in Palm Beach. I don't know. I say I welcome it back. Now, Trump said on NBC's Meet the Press in September, Donald, saying she's a private person, a great person, a very confident person, and she loves our country very much. And honestly, I'd like to keep her away from it. It's so nasty and so mean. Very true. The way they treated her, unlike any other first lady, it was despicable. Not to mention you have Melania, who was a model throughout her career, not getting the covers of magazines as a Dr. Jill or Michelle Obama, or et cetera. Receiving just little things like that, I think, are really telling of the media. And just, I remember the first time they started criticizing her shoes, of all things, as she went on Air Force One, because they were going to a disaster location, and they said, how could she wear heels to this? This is despicable. Well, of course, they didn't really realize that scandal was not a scandal, because who would believe it, that on Air Force One there could possibly be a change of clothing and shoes? And of course, when she got on the ground, it was work boots. We have a couple of other things to get through very, very quickly, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back, and I do have to take our last short break very quickly. We received this comment from a viewer. What's even more disturbing is having at least one member of the squad openly display her hatred of our ally, Israel. I think it's been a very telling time for many Democrats who are seeing this streak, whether it's on college campuses or within the party itself, of a kind of an anti-Semitism, of a very strong dislike for Israel, and really, some instances, just almost especially with Hollywood liberals, a pro-Hamas almost mindset. I don't know if it's for the shock value or to show that they're, you can't even say the most caring, but to show that they're the most, what's the word I'm looking for, activist, the most, but because you're almost, well, I don't want to get into all that because it's enough to make you sick. But so I agree. Thank you. Keep those comments coming in. You remember Michael Moore, very relevant. The media told us for a long time. I don't know if it really was. He says former President Donald Trump is smarter than Democrats, and the prospect of his return to the White House is a legitimate fear for him. The left-wing documentary director warned his fellow Democrats. He was on a podcast. He said, "We don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. And the reason we need to be concerned is that Trump is smarter than us. I know, you're calling the people to come find me, the guys in the white uniforms with a big net, and take me away. Are you crazy? What do you mean he's smarter than us?" He says that Trump has been able to pull, we'll say, stuff off and get away with it throughout his whole life, adding it's an amazing record. You must marvel at how somebody that stupid is that smart when it comes to the performance of his evil and his ability to never have to pay for it. Warning, and he's smarter. I think there's some that are scared on the left, watching the poll numbers for Biden, watching the support for Trump. We've got a little bit more to get to before we wrap up, so stay right there. This is Frankly Speaking. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. This is, frankly speaking, about to go to 2 hours starting at 6 a.m. on April the 1st. Don't miss it. There's another piece kind of tying in Michael Moore for whatever reason, bringing him up. Bill Maher, someone I consider very similar. Did you see that on his program he scolded Americans who are struggling with inflation? It's one of these ideas where, you just don't get it. You can get a TV for $60. You got next day shipping, stuffed crust pizza, legal weed, cheer, and then he cussed, of course. Stop acting like life in America in 2024 is unbearable. Biden's ratings are in the toilet, not because he's doing such a bad job, but because a lot of Americans like to live with their head in the toilet. That's smart humor. It has Adam Coleman, which has a great piece of the New York Post, and I want you to find it if you have an opportunity. Bill Maher scolds Americans struggling with inflation as he praises Biden from his private jet. He doesn't have to reconcile the struggle of the average American who hasn't seen a raise in wages in years and dares not complain because his or her choice of employment is more limited than the seating on Maher's private jet. If he truly understood what's going on, he wouldn't think most America's economic satisfaction is related to the stock market success, when the top 1% of earners holds ownership of 54% of the stocks, valuing more than $19 trillion. Maher minimizes the impact of inflation as a side dish to our economic woes, when in reality it's the main course, and I like that line a lot. There's a way that they kind of look at inflation, and it's not the way the government does. What they're saying here is taking out the luxuries included in the government's CPI. In other words, it looks at the cost of things like food, shelter, and energy, and not these cheap TVs that Bill Maher is bragging up. The inflation burden under Biden has made the average working person's standard of living deteriorate by around 7% since 2021. So I don't want to go through all this. Find it for yourself. Also, Mark Cuban, who can't stand Trump, had to defend Trump after that. Ted Lieu thought he was so smart, and it's so cringy what he said. It's very trying to be cool with young people. Trump claims he is a billionaire, but he can't pay a $464 million judgment. That means he is lying. How do I know? Math. Now, Mark Cuban, who does, again, hate Trump, had to say, you're wrong on that one. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. We covered so much this morning, and I want to thank you for all the comments. As always, had a blast. I want to thank Robbie Nichols. Again, the Elmira Pioneers Hot Stove Dinner with Bucky Dent will be Friday, April 19th. Do not miss it. Call for those tickets, 607-734-2690. Well, have a great day, everyone. Tomorrow we're going to talk with Amy again from Casa Trinity. They have another, they're just expanding at all times. I'm really looking forward to talking with her and learning more about it. So that is on tomorrow's broadcast. So please tune in. This has been, Frankly Speaking, a WYDC TV Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone.